Hello again, everybody. We are back with On the Raritan. I'm your host, Peter Slattery. We're with Adam and Max, and we are here talking about episode 3, which just recently released. And before we even say anything, I haven't done this before, but I think it's super important. There are massive spoilers in this. I think that this is the most, how the game is structured. That is what we're talking about right now. This is the most important episode to how the game is structured moving forward. So if you have not seen episode 3, you need to see it right now. But that's your last chance. Let's get into episode 3, Bro Down. So before we start, questions or anything, do any of you just have any general statements you want to say about episode 3?
All right. Yeah, so episode 3 was a lot to edit. It is 54 minutes long, which is over 20 minutes longer than our first two. So I had a lot of footage that I had to sift through. I knew that episode 3 was going to be a tough one to work with, but I really like how it came out. If anything, I think the episode is a little slow. I don't know if it's my favorite one, but I don't know what I would have taken out. I'm sure I could have taken out some stuff to make it just a smoother, better paced story. But there's so much that I just wanted to put in there. And the contestants that we cast on the show, they worked really hard and they gave us a lot. And I wanted as much as possible to be in the Rutgers Survivor canon. I wanted to show as much as I could and tell the most complete story. So even if it wasn't the best paced episode in the world, I am happy with how complete that the package of episode 3 was. And it seems like most people liked it. And yeah, Adam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, to bounce off of that, you're absolutely right. We had so much content to work with, and you did a great job editing it as per usual, Max.
Oh, thank you.
But but everything was just so good. Maybe it was paced a little slow, but there was just so much from a contextual standpoint that we needed. And I'm sure we're gonna go into this more, Peter. But just in terms of the planning and everything for this episode, I felt this was the first time where we truly had our system. I don't want to say perfected, but we were really close. We knew exactly what to do from a scheduling standpoint, where to put everyone, how to place people for certain camera shots. I felt it might have been one of our smoother recording sessions, considering the amount of people we had as compared to the amount of contestants versus camera people. Yes, we had Sadie with us, right?
Yeah.
We had Sadie, yeah. And we had
Yeah.
all of us three, but we also
Mhm.
had 8 contestants. And it was
So
the
yeah, so the ratio is still very overwhelming when you consider the scramble, the challenge, what we have to do to make sure that we're able to get all that content. And that's what I want to emphasize the most. I mean, I don't want to toot our own horn too much, but yeah, I was really impressed that we were able to pull it off.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And to get really more into the meat and potatoes, I think of this episode, we have to talk about the idol because the idol has been ever since it was introduced in the real CBS Survivor. It has kind of been a mainstay for better or for worse, kind of wrapping around the minds of all the players in that season. So, as you know, if you've seen the episode, the idol clue was revealed in New York City, Times Square. It was a beautiful last minute idea. We don't have to go too much into that, but the idol was released, and in our fashion, me and Adam, it was dropped at 1 a.m. The clue, and everyone was scrambling. Everyone was trying to figure out what this was. And maybe Max, you can give some more detail behind this because you were kind of in charge of what all that was. So, what do you have to say about the idol?
Yeah, so the idol, I knew ever since looking at the footage that we were going to have a whole section of the episode dedicated to the idol. Um, how I was putting all the pieces together, I wasn't quite sure. Because I knew I wanted to include as many of the attempts. So basically, I don't think this was stated by Peter in the episode, but it is stated in a graphic that the contestants, it was made clear to them that they had to take pictures in front of certain landmarks, in front of one specific landmark in order to receive the idol. So I knew I wanted to include all of the pictures in the edit. I think I ended up including pretty much all of them. I wouldn't say I struggled, but it took a little like trial and error to figure out where exactly to put the pictures so that they lined up with the story, and I'm happy with how that ended up turning out. A couple of my favorite moments were when Jack is talking about him and Kevin looking for the idol, and you get to see Jack and Kevin's attempts, the pictures they took, and one of them is Kevin standing next to Sir Henry, which I thought was a really funny little like
That's
blink of an eye
dedication.
moment.
That is
Yeah,
awesome.
and it shows a lot of dedication on Kevin's part that he was willing to go that far as to actually find Sir Henry and take a picture with him. And then also there's the one picture of John doing the little right in front of the winning statue. Like if he took that picture earlier, that same picture, he would have gotten the idol. And then you cut after that picture, you cut to his confessional about how embarrassing it was for him to take that picture in front of the stadium when there's no game and people are just staring at him like, what the heck is this guy doing? So I am glad that I put this segment together in a way that had a couple blink if you miss it moments that really do fit within the general story and the comedy of what's going on.
Yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
great leeway because Adam, I wanted to ask you. I mean, that what you just said about John is great leeway into who actually found it. So if you want to talk about that and a little bit of the process, because I believe you were there to help film the person who got it. So without further ado, let's see who got it. What happened?
Yes. So the person who ended up receiving the idol, and once again, spoilers.
Say I found it.
I found it.
Was Matt. Matt was the first one to find the correct statue in front of the football stadium and get a picture with it. Me and Peter, that is, ended up going. We met up with Matt a day or two after he sent us the correct answer to give him this idol in front of the College Ave gym. We figured it's we lived on College Ave. Matt lived on Livingston this last year, so we figured in front of a bus stop. For those of you who don't know, Rutgers is a massive campus. You need to rely on the buses to go from place to place usually. So we figured just right in front of a populated bus stop, like it would be a good place to meet. We did it after dinner, like the next day or something. And once we figured out the shot, Peter's obviously the host. Like we need to get him in the camera shot, giving Matt the idol. So I just stood in front of him, recorded it. We literally were all only together for 2 or 3 minutes, and it was because we also didn't want to risk like anyone else seeing. Once again, populated bus stop. You don't know if the other 7, 8 people, whatever still left in the game, could actually see this interaction. That's a risk that was also in the back of our heads, albeit something that would be extremely unlikely, but it's still possible. We don't want to be influencing the game like that. So for better or for worse, it was kind of just like a 1-2 minute clip that we filmed. We got his immediate reaction and went our separate ways. And that was a few days before we ended up filming the episode. And then we just went from there. But I do got to say with the idol is I did not think everyone would be complaining about the email being sent out at 1 a.m.
I don't think they were complaining. I don't think they were complaining.
Yeah.
I think it was more just like that caught them so off guard because we, to be fair, we have been timing our emails. Oh, should we send this time? Should we send this time? And me and Adam were like, nah, let's make them go crazy and let's send it at once.
Well, it wasn't even that. My perspective was just the sooner we get it out, the better, because it was already like the Tuesday before, and we were filming on Saturday, so it felt like time was money. And I don't know. I mean, for reference, me and Peter, we stay up abnormally late during the school year. Like we went to bed at like probably 3 a.m. that night if we sent out the email at 1. For reference, during the summer, my sleep schedule is something that needs to be studied. I went to bed at like 7, 8 a.m. last night, and we're recording this at about 5:30, 5:45 p.m. right now. I woke up 15 minutes before we needed to get on the Zoom. So that's just
he almost didn't make this podcast.
Yeah,
we almost had to do without him.
I'm literally nocturnal
to make sure he's up. But regardless, we're going to see later in the season how that idol is going to come into play with the various players that are on this cast right now. And that leads us, I think, greatly into the next area I want to talk about, which is kind of like the big first twist this season, which is the merge. Now, I think a lot of the contestants were thinking, when could this possibly happen? Because not having a merge doesn't make sense. And the real question was, when were they going to do it? Would they do it on an odd number? Would they do it on an even number? Is it too early? Is it too late? And all those thoughts were bouncing around our heads too. But we ultimately came to the conclusion that it is probably best to do it at 8. And that is what we decided to go with. And so, yeah, Max, how about you talk a little bit about the merge?
Yeah, so we weren't exactly sure where to put the merge, whether we wanted to do it at 7, so we'd have 3 rounds of the tribal game. I initially thought that 8 was too early. I wanted them to be in tribes a little bit longer, but we all decided that I think it would be best for the season as a whole to just do the merge at 8 at an even number. And I'm really glad we did. I think that led to a really great episode. But we still had I think we also threw around the idea of doing a tribe swap, so we ended up making the tribe swap lie how we reveal the information of the merge. No one caught on to it. It seemed like, I mean, why would we lie about them switching tribes? That's a normal thing that happens in Survivor. But
Mhm.
I'm really glad that we did come up with this fake tribe swap idea because it led to some really fun reactions. Notably, you have Kevin revealing that it's the merge buff and going, yes, yes. So I'm really happy that we decided to do what we did in revealing the merge. I think it led to a really fun moment and a good surprise for the audience. And another thing that the fake tribe swap led to was each tribe planning on throwing the challenge if they find out that they're in a 3-to-1 tribe split up. So I know Joe on Voorhees was saying this, and John on Wordland was saying that if they end up in a swapped tribe where there's 3 of them and one of the people on the other tribe, they would throw the challenge in order to keep their tribe's numbers. And I think this moment was foreshadowing for what ended up happening at the tribal, which was the 4-to-4 tribe split in the vote that led to the crazy open discussion, which we'll get into later.
We definitely
Mhm.
will. And yeah, so
Mhm.
maybe you should talk about in terms of the merge, like how strong do you think tribal lines were at this point? Because the way how Max was describing, I don't think that there was any leeway at all. But maybe do you remember anything like key things that you remember about potentially maybe one person switching or one person splitting or anything? Yeah.
I think the biggest key thing that we saw, and it was mentioned in the episode quite heavily, without specifically saying what happens so far. I gotta say, the sisters, Asi and Gia, and that's been a big storyline from episodes 1 and 2 as well. People kept one of the reasons they kept them on board and didn't immediately vote one out at tribal is because they were hoping to be able to use one of the sisters to flip the other sister to their side when the time
Mhm.
comes to get the number. So that is something that we will talk about more. Not going to say how exactly that unfolds, but I don't think there's really anything that Max didn't get in the episode, from my perspective, that really impacted tribal lines one way or another in the way that that did. But just one of the great things that we had about this cast of the competitors, like none of them knew each other going in, except for Asi and Gia, and we get to see how that predetermined relationship plays out among the other castmates and how they try to work around it, which I just love. And I gotta say, in terms of the merge itself, 8 people may seem a little bit bizarre or unusual, I guess, for a normal merge. But you got to remember, when we're starting with 10 people, we were stuck in between a rock and a hard place, because hindsight's 2020, and it would have been pretty cool to see the strategy of a normal tribe swap. But at the same time, here, like 7 or 6, we just felt like with only a few more eliminations left at that point, what's the point of doing a tribe swap? At least that was me and Peter's perspective. So it just felt 8 was the perfect number to capitalize. And by virtue of the way we described it and gave them the information, we still got the fun reactions that we wanted and were able to include them. So
Yeah. Yeah, looking back, I don't think I have any regrets. I think we made the right call because we could have been risking a complete blowout. Let's say Voorhees loses the next 2, and then Warbler just come on and completely like dominates him. You know what I mean? So that could
mhm.
have happened. And then another thing, Max, I just wanted to touch on was I love John's reaction too in that when he's opening the little buff bombs that we made, and he's like, "Wait, what is purple?" Because I said,
Mhm.
if you're blue, you're on Warbler, and if you're red, you're on Voorhees. So already their minds are like based on the fact that okay, I'm either going to see red or I'm going to see blue. So maybe he could have thought that is it going to be the one thing where the one person's in the middle they have to pick? Now we tricked them. We got the whole
Mhm.
merge tribe going. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about the merge. And next, we are going to talk about the immunity challenge. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break put in a clip of the episode. It's going to be really cool if you just re-jog everyone's memory. And when we come back, we actually have something very special. For the first time on this podcast, we are having another guest. And who is that guest? It is going to be the person who was eliminated this episode. So please, mega spoilers. If you have not seen it yet, you need to watch it. So when we come back, you're going to see who that is. See you guys soon. Next vote, John. We are deadlocked. It's 3 votes Joe, 3 votes John. Next vote, Joe. That is 4 votes Joe, 3 votes John. Last vote left. John. It is a deadlock. Because you guys are cold, we are going to move into an automatic open discussion. If you cannot decide, it is a random rock draw where Logan has immunity. He cannot draw a rock. John, you will not draw a rock, and Joe will not draw a rock. The remaining 5 have to draw. We'll discuss now.
It's kind of telling me and Jack we're willing to go to rocks, but none of them are.
All right, I think everyone has said their piece right. So I'm going to ask each of you if you're changing your vote. Logan, are you changing your vote?
No.
I'll save you for last. Jack, are you changing your vote?
Can't vote.
Ashi, are you changing your vote? Kevin, are you changing your vote? Gia, are you changing your vote? All right, and we are back with On the Raritan. I'm your host, Peter Slattery. We have Adam, we have Max, and we have for the first time our special guest, Joe. Unfortunately, he was the one eliminated this episode, but we're going to get into that, like when we get into that. And so, yeah, we're going to continue where we left off. We talked about the merge, and we're now talking about the immunity challenge. So for the first time since we have a player with us, how about Joe? What was your perspective with the immunity challenge? What did you think maybe, of this episode, how you did? What was it like?
Yeah, no, this is definitely a challenge that I've thought about playing this challenge. You know, it's been on Survivor, one of those ones you can kind of think about and strategize about. I had a certain strategy going into it, which was to assign each shape some sort of letter and then remember the sequence as a sequence of letters. Now, I thought that was a good idea. However, I did not do very well in that challenge. And it's a lot harder than it looks. Remembering it like that, maybe use numbers or something else would have been better. But I think I got too caught up in the method of it. But overall, I think this was like a good challenge to bring to College Survivor. It's pretty easily translatable. It doesn't require a lot of, moving parts, pretty easy to put together. But it was a fun one to play, even if I didn't get to play the whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. And like I said, that was the main thing we want to do because we just did a physical challenge in episode 2. So we're trying to balance what we can do with what we want to do. And I think this was a great middleman. And I know me and Adam tested this with each other the night before just to make sure everything was going to work. But yeah, Max, do you have anything to add about the immunity challenge? Maybe the results or the process or anything else?
Yeah. So one thing that I thought was really cool about the challenge and the way everything was shot was that towards the end, you got to see the audience, the people who had already gotten out, watching the people who were still in. And I think once we got down to just Kevin, John, and Logan, you got to see the 5 of you standing off to the side. What was it like witnessing the tail end of that challenge? Of course, with your position in the game, I'm sure there were some people you really wanted to see win, some people you didn't want to see win. What was the suspense like watching the end of that challenge?
I was definitely surprised with how long it went. I really thought at the end of that one round that someone would have messed up at least, but they all kind of went through there and got to that final segment. So that was definitely unexpected. I think I was definitely focused on, any Voorhees member winning would have been more ideal for me, just having a wider breadth of options. But other than that, I just remember being really cold standing there and being like, oh my God, let's do this. Come on, someone win.
Yeah, it was a freezing cold day.
They got 10 symbols, or it was either 8 or 10 symbols on that one round you're talking about. And I mean, at the very end, we know what happens. We know that Logan was able to come out with the dub at the very end. Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, Logan, he did an incredible job. Like we said, all 3 of them in that last round were able to recite, 10 symbols? I mean, that is very hard to do. Like when we were testing it, it's not exactly an easy task, especially when you have all these other layers in terms of strategy being thrown on top of you, not to mention the extreme cold, which I'm sure we'll get into more. But yeah, it seems like something, obviously, with it being the first individual immunity, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Joe, it's something that I assume everyone really wanted, even regardless of strategic standpoint. You just want to be the one to say you could have the first individual immunity in Rutgers Survivor history. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for you, but you saw the excitement from Logan when he did win. So
yeah, I think that, like if you're trying to play in an ideal world, maybe you don't want to win challenges right away, like oh you throw them to seem less threatening. But when it comes to like a real life experience like this, not some online survivor, like when it's real and you really want to win it, especially like show other people, like oh I won one, so it's something special. So I'm glad Logan got to have that, even if I didn't.
Yeah, yeah, and I think now we're going to go into the scramble because, like I said, Logan wins immunity, and I actually first one of my favorite moments is when, for the first time, the symbols don't match, and I think two people had a symbol different than Logan, and then it pans to what Max was saying, the audience, and you're like, oh no, whose is it? Who's right? Who's right? And then Logan took it. But yeah, I think we should go into the scramble because Max, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was like a big part of the episode, like time wise. Wasn't it like
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes almost
I
of
think
it?
it was around 20 minutes. I
Yeah.
think I don't remember the exact time codes, but I think it went from like 16 or 17 minutes into the episode to like 36 or 37 minutes. So it was about a 20-minute scramble.
So it's
A lot.
a big chunk. And I guess with that, Joe, since you're here, what was it like to play in that scramble? And I know we have our perspective from what was filmed and what was edited together, but yeah, what do you have to say about that? And maybe was there anything that you were thinking or trying to do that wasn't in the episode?
So that episode and that scramble, actually getting to strategize with you all, that people felt the most real in terms of Survivor thus far. Back on Voorhees, there were only, so many people, and it was a lot more cagey with who you could talk to. But with 8 people, like you truly couldn't get to everyone in the amount of time that we had. And it was so awkward sometimes, not wanting to reveal your full set of cards to people. And it's really different. Like I played a lot of online Survivor, having to lie to someone's face or kind of, not fully trust them and have to be really cagey. It felt very different. And then something you don't really notice when you're watching the show is having to go do your confessional really takes away a lot of important time, and so much can change when you're doing that. I especially felt that for me, where I was doing a lot of running around for most of the scramble at the beginning. When I finally went to go do my confessional, I think I only did like one really extended one. I came back and like everything had changed, and I came back and that's when my name came up. And then it kind of was like part 2 of getting to figure out like, oh gosh, how did this happen? How can I reverse this? And that's something I think that you don't really realize that happens. You're missing time when you go to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's really easy to lie to people over the internet, not so easy when it's face to face, and especially when they're on your team. But you actually brought up a really good point, and it's something I think that I don't know if we've ever really touched on this yet, but everybody is filmed equally in the number of their confessionals. It's just that not all of them are shown. So like when Joe is saying that he's away, that doesn't mean that, for example, Gia or Ashi didn't have to go to confessional. We made it pretty clear that everyone has to record at least one, because that way we can mitigate, because like as Joe just said, he's away, everything could change. And then if Gia's away, everything could change. And Ashi's away, everything could change. And that goes right into this question I want to ask Adam. Alongside with Joe, who's trying to play a lot of these games, and maybe he can even go into more depth into that, like trying to do split votes, trying to swindle Matt over. But we saw this really cool dialogue between Gia and Ashi, one trying to win over the other. Adam, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
yeah, that was something that, and I mentioned it a few minutes ago, right before we had Joe on here. Just that dynamic and how that had the potential to affect every tribal council thus far and in the future, because obviously if one of the girls flips over, that gives the other side a massive numbers advantage. So just seeing them kind of holding their cards to their chest when they're sisters, they probably came to the filming session together. I mean, they like they're sisters, So I don't want to speak for them, but I doubt they lie to each other or hold things that often. So this was probably a bizarre thing for both of them. We were just watching it from the other side, from filming it and trying to edit it together. But I can only imagine what they're thinking, trying to sway one to the other side. I mean, really, otherwise, I'm speechless in terms of even describing it, because I couldn't imagine what my position would be, trying to go in there and swaying someone that close to me, to be like, oh yeah, let's just go flip to the other side. Can you do that for me?
Yeah, yeah, and that dynamic ultimately is super, super important when it comes to the vote. Before we move on to the actual voting, Max, did you have any more questions for Joe that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I have one question that was very, from what we see, is very important to Joe's strategy and the strategy of Voorhees throughout this episode, which is the assumption that no, the assumption that nope, not Matt is the one on the
Okay,
outside,
good.
according to Voorhees, but it's the assumption that John, Logan, and Ashi are the trio, and that Matt is the one on the outside. So my question for Joe is, in the episode, we see Gia tell you and the rest of Voorhees that Ashi has an alliance with two of the people on her tribe, and she doesn't mention who. What we do see is you and Jack and Kevin assume that Matt is the one on the outs. So was there a moment where Gia falsely indicated that Ashi was aligned with John or Logan, or was this just something you assumed based on the behavior of the people on the other tribe and just the appearance of Matt being less social than the other people in the tribe?
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, I think you're right in that we probably did not get the names from Ashi herself. And I think our assumption came from the fact that Matt was the one to receive the vote at the Boston Green Tribal. I think that from that, and the fact that there was an alliance of three with Ashi in it, we said, okay, it's probably that Matt was likely the most expendable person on the other tribe. Um, and I think that's really where the logic came from. And clearly, from what we've seen in the episode, it was that leap of logic that I think really undid things for our tribe generally, where we could still force the tie, but a large part of my driving strategy that round, after I decided, splitting the vote may be too obvious of a plan, was driven by the fact that we thought Matt was on the bottom of his tribe, wasn't in some sort of alliance, and that turned out to not be the case. It turned out to be Matt, Logan, Ashi, and then Matt, Ash, and John, which is a really different dynamic than I think we had thought was happening over there.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And oh, sorry, Max, did you have a follow-up or?
Oh no, I was just gonna say no, that does make sense. Because you do have a conversation with Matt in the episode where, and I don't know if this specific line makes the edit, but I know there is one point where you say to Matt, like, I feel that there's a lot of really social people on that tribe. You have Logan and John, who are very outspoken people, people that are very upfront when they're talking to you. And Matt is a little more subtle, doesn't make the same sort of obvious moves that John and Logan do. And you do have that conversation. I don't know if it made the edit. I think part of it did. But the fact that Matt receiving a vote at the tribal was also part of that logic does make a lot of sense. So yeah, thanks for that info.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Joe, I just have to say, I mean, I assume anyone watching can also figure it out. But you just said a few minutes ago that you do online Survivor. You're obviously a super fan, very heavy on your strategic aspect of Survivor as a whole. So like someone, and you're an actuary, so the number cruncher, it makes sense. So from someone who just loves all the strategic elements of all these certain reality games, so it's not just Survivor, but just how does your background, and this could be a good segue into tribal or just in general, how during these scrambles, like did your background, your interest for your strategic element maybe played a role in how you approached the game, how you approached other people? Because like you said, you came up with a lot of different split vote ideas when maybe other people weren't thinking about it. So just where do you think you placed the strategy in terms of the importance on the game?
Yeah, I've had a lot of experience getting to play, Survivor Online, Big Brother Online, Challenge Online since summer 2019, I think. So it's been several years of that, getting to know people, getting to play the game so many times. I think I liken it to chess a little bit. We're chess players who they play so many games that they kind of know the scenarios, they've been through them multiple times. So I have either, spectated games or been in games where these scenarios come up, and so I think the numbers come to me a lot more easily that way. However, I think the fact that I am able to do this so easily with my experience and the fact that I have such a wide survivor knowledge base kind of threatened some of the people there. Like I just remember during the episode, John saying, we bring up the Exile Alliance and stuff like that. That was a bit much to some people, where I'm kind of used to people that are way more into the fandom. And when everyone's like entering to play these games, usually you've played many before, whereas this was a lot of people's first experience. But from a numbers perspective, I quickly saw that I don't think Ashi was flippable based on her personality, and from the information that she had an alliance that we got from Gia. So I immediately realized, okay, we need either to flip someone else, or we need some sort of way to divide their votes to come out with a plurality of votes. That being our four against their sort of split, which is where that first split vote idea came from, a 3-3-2, or rather, it would be a 4-2-2. We were proposing a 3-3-2 to them, where so long as me and Gia were on different sides of the split, we could flip our votes from the 3-3-2 to make it 4-2-2, which is why at the beginning of the episode, you see me get everyone together and say, no matter what, we're voting John. Because I knew that no matter what, that would force our tie. I felt like we had enough loyalty to do that, and we did. But really, my doing came from the fact that, again, my knowledge being a blessing and a curse, I thought that the original split vote idea would be too see-throughable. And I think I thought other people would see it. So that's why we approached Matt with that idea based on that other assumption, because I didn't think it would fully work. So overall, it's really fun to think about the numbers, but at the end of the day, it comes down to other social dynamics. And that, Ashi wasn't flippable. We misread Matt. So as much as I knew the numbers, some people aren't readable in that way, and that you kind of need a little more than that, which is what we didn't have at the end.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you almost got lost in the books a little bit, and you were playing such a hard strategic numbers game that you kind of forgot, or maybe not forgot, but just like the other parts of the game kind of snuck up on you. And that's eventually what did happen as we talk about the vote now, where besides you're talking about a split vote, besides the fact that you were trying to swindle in Matt, and besides the fact that Gia and Ashi had that conversation where one was going to flip, we get a 4-4, which I'm very, very happy about, because this is like our first tie. Because before the votes, I would say they were pretty cut and dry, May and Ethan. But now we're talking about a 4-4 vote. And I mean, we already know, I think I can pretty much sum it up as just like, tribal lines at that point. People were kind of maybe playing chicken, too scared to make that move, commit, or they thought you were too dangerous. So either way, we had 4 votes for you, Joe, and we had 4 votes for John. And that reveal, Max, you did a wonderful job editing that. I love how the music just cuts out and it's like, oh, bruh, like, I can't believe that happened. So because we were going to talk about this, it's actually like the real show. It's hard to describe what it feels like to play, and not just feels like in terms of being in the game. Like, it was cold that day, and maybe not in the very, very beginning, but by the end, people were literally shivering on that bench. So I think me, Max, and Adam made the objective call. All right, if we do a revote, it's going to waste everybody's time. We already could feel that everyone was going to, vote the same. So I was like, you know what? We're going to go right into an open discussion, which I just think is better anyway, because it gives us more action. It gives more potential for moves to happen. And yeah, so we're going to move on to the open discussion now. And so I think I let Max ask that last one first. So Adam, what do you have to say about this open discussion?
Yeah, really just, we saw how the chaos unfolded. Just being there in person, and Peter, Max, even you, Joe, from in the game, we can all attest to it. Like, it was something that I don't think I would have expected to see in a college Survivor, let alone that early in the season, and very rare for real Survivor as it is. That's just it was just something crazy, and frankly, I'm speechless. But I guess really the biggest question I have for you, Joe, is just once you realize that there are 4 votes on you, and just that you're just trying to find your way to the next round, just out of this tie vote situation. You obviously tried to make some pretty strong appeals, and just do whatever you can and it led to some little quips and arguments from other players, but just overall, between the freezing cold, everything you were feeling, what was your thought process, I guess, trying to save yourself out of that?
It was a little frustrating, I would say, the open discussion. I didn't feel like my allies and Jack and Kevin were really doing the best job. They were saying, oh, we'll quit for you. And I was like, that's not going to work. That's a terrible argument. No one's going to believe that, whether you mean it or not. And I feel like the other side is just way more cohesive, that I felt like my main goal after, hearing everyone trying to argue in a disorganized way was I kind of wanted to get a platform for myself to kind of have that final nail in the coffin to try to convince Gia, which is why I brought up the idea that, okay, everyone says they're one piece, and then we'll kind of go for it. So I tried to structure where I went last, which I did end up doing, specifically saying to Jack, like, oh, I want to go last. After all the strategic arguments and stuff like that, I think we tried to say, like, oh, Logan had the idol. I decided to just focus on that emotional appeal because I think driving home that loyalty was probably the best chance I had. Because strategically, I truly think Gia would have been fine regardless of what she did at that tribal. You know, like she had ins on the other tribe, she had ins on our tribe. So I think any strategic argument wasn't going to go either way. We didn't have a strong strategic argument, which is why I went for, I've had fun with you. I want to keep playing this game. I care so much about it. So it was kind of like a last ditch effort, but I really didn't see any other avenue out. And I thought having myself be the final one to give that pitch was the best way to do it. And it unfortunately didn't work out, but I don't really regret the pitch in any way. So it was just kind of like an interesting way to do it, and that I couldn't use my number base. I had to go for that really social strategy way of trying to convince her.
Yeah, you froze a little bit there, but we heard you fine, so that's fine. I'm just curious, like, did you almost want the rock draw? Because, like I said, you would have been immune in the rock draw. Was that, or were you really head fast on like someone? Was it more like conservative, like she can't flip, or was it like you needed someone else to flip for you to get that majority?
I wanted rocks. I didn't think we could get someone to flip from the other tribe. I really was like, we just got to go for rocks at this point. Like for us, for us to have like flipped someone, like we would have had to have presented a united front from the beginning. Then maybe we could have flipped someone like a Matt or a Logan. Probably not. It would have had to have been like a Matt or an Ashi at that point. But our front just seemed less united from the outset, so I don't think that was possible.
Yeah, so for future reference, don't say you're going to quit at Final Four. That's not a valid argument.
I was so annoyed.
Sorry, Kevin. I was laughing too. I was like, what has he said? All right, Max, did you have any questions for Joe regarding this open speech?
Yeah, so during that open discussion, was there a specific moment where you felt like, okay, it's going to be me? Or were you holding out hope? I mean, I'm sure you were holding out some hope the whole time, but was there a specific moment where like your hope of staying went from like here to here?
I think so. When I came back from that confessional and I found out my name was out there, like my heart sunk. That was before the tribal.
Yeah.
And I think I was at a low point there where I was like, I'm probably going home. The fact that I got that first tie alone, I think actually raised my hope a little bit. Just getting the chance to kind of discuss and try to force rocks in that way. I don't think she just was not really saying much, so I don't think I really had a good read on where she was at, which is why I just went for that emotional appeal, like I said. So I don't think there was any sort of drop. It was just kind of like waiting on her on what she said. And then, once it happens, it happens.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to compliment you because I did think you were very eloquent and well-spoken in that final pitch. And I love Jack and Kevin to death, but I don't think they were doing you much justice. But I just wanted to give you congratulations for the job that you did do, even if it wasn't successful.
Of course, yeah, I really appreciate that. As nice as that is, I did get heated at times too, saying I think I said I wanted Matt to get rocked out. That was me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we should ask you. So that's who you would have wished would have gone home and all that?
So in terms of if we rented rocks, I was at the time, I thought that I was feeling a little bit of some sort of way. It's an emotional game. From my understanding, as we talked about earlier, Matt was someone that we thought was on the bottom. So at the time, I was more upset with Matt for being like, oh, I'm extending you an olive branch as the person on the bottom, which we thought to be true. And the fact that he immediately ran that back to the people we thought were in an alliance, we were thinking, why would you do that? At least that's what I was thinking. I don't want to speak for anyone else. That's what I thought. So I was a little annoyed that I thought someone on the bottom was just playing for these other people, which is, I think, what caused me to say that, for me to call Matt the rat. There was also a little bit of fanfare. It's fun to say stuff like that for the show. But it was really getting to me that it was like, oh, why did he do that? I was trying to work with him. Why would you sever this connection with me, try to target someone else? So I was definitely in my feels a little bit. But that's why I was thinking, oh, I want Matt to go for being the one to rat out the plan. Because I was specifically telling him, like, oh, if you're not comfortable with it, I don't want to do this plan. And then I was a little scorned by that just because of my impression of the decision.
Yeah, that and like the last two things I think I kind of main points I'd like to bring up is just I love how so far in this whole entire season, we've heard all this talk about, oh, Ashi and Gia, maybe we could switch one on our side, maybe we could switch one on our side. And for the first two episodes, that is a pretty substantial part in the strategy talk. And finally, unfortunately for you, it did happen this episode. So it was kind of cool to see that wasn't all just talk and like it actually led to something. And then the second thing I wanted to bring up, which another reason why I love Survivor in general, especially our show, is just like, when people are ingrained in the season and they love watching it, they root for people, they root against you. Like Joe, I've had a couple people who are like, no, I wish he would have stayed in, and other people who are like, yeah, I'm glad to see him gone. So it's just crazy to get that perspective and just to have you on as well. And I think because we've done this with every episode we so far of this podcast, we should do like a fan favorite of episode 3. And I honestly think, I mean, he's right here. I think it should be Joe. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think Joe should take it for that one.
I think it's a very respectable pick. I mean, like we said, Joe, you're very well spoken. I think you truly were, and for your entire tenure, all 3 episodes, I do think you were arguably the best narrator that we could have had to really set the course of the season, especially in that first episode when you were the main narrator for the Voorhees scramble, and even to an extent in episode 2, even though Voorhees didn't have as much screen time. But just overall, that's kind of like just a general thing. Like I can't thank you enough. I think on behalf of all of us, you definitely added a very nice strategic element to it all. But yeah, I'll give you fan favorite. I'm not afraid to say it.
I mean, Joe, this 3rd episode, even though it was your downfall, it really was your episode from a narrative perspective. We got to hear your perspective, the beginning, middle, and end. You shaped the strategy or the attempted strategy of Voorhees, and you explained it all very well. So yeah, thank you so much for being a great part of season 1. And yeah, no, I've heard great things. People saying like, oh yeah, that really calculated guy with long hair, I think he's gonna go far.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people are shocked to see you go, but I thought you had a great run.
Yeah, no, it's way too much. Thank you guys so much. I'm not anything great like this. Anyone can go on Rutgers Survivor, Real Survivor. You can be anyone and kind of have that great experience, whether you're strategic or not. You're more social. Like it was just so much fun. So I'm glad so I'm glad people enjoy me, and I'm glad people hate me too. If that's the case, like as long as I'm bringing something fun. Like that's the goal. Whether I come across as like calculated or cocky, whatever it is, I just want to everyone have a good time and feel something about this product for all these games.
That's great. And I also gotta say, just congrats in general, because besides myself and Peter, you are the only other alumni.
He's the only alumni. He's the only alumni contestant so far. So congrats.
I was surprised that I was like the oldest person on this cast. I was like, wow, no other seniors are doing this.
I think a lot of it just, people see us at the involvement fair, brand new club. If I had to guess, I mean, there were probably other seniors that if they would have heard about a Rutgers Survivor in the past, they definitely would have. But I don't think there's too many people at that stage in their college career that would want to just hop on a brand new jump start, if that makes sense. But either way, I mean, once again, speaking on behalf of everyone, the viewers and everything, we're all glad you did.
Yeah. And speaking of, like, this just popped in my head. I can't believe I forgot this. Another reason you deserve to be a fan favorite is just because you're passionate. Because this man, he is in charge of another club. He's, I believe, your president or war president before of the actuarial club at Rutgers. He changed their meeting times to accommodate Rutgers Survivor. I believe, right? Is that true?
I don't think so, to be honest, but.
Well, we have a friend who was vice president. He told us that, so we were under the assumption that you changed it. But regardless, that's another funny little story. This is how me and Joe initially met, I believe. So for all clubs, presidents have to do this seminar at Rutgers at the beginning of the year. Me and Peter both did it by virtue of being co-presidents. We went to different sessions, but it was just like, how to be a good and effective leader of a club. And me and Joe just randomly sat next to each other. I didn't see him at the involvement fair. I was walking around for some sort of thing. Just so happens we were sitting at the same table right next to each other. And then I see on his water bottle a Survivor 43 sticker. And then when he said actuarial club, and we had our other friend, and it all came together for me. And I'm like, oh, wait, it's a nice sticker. First off, you're a Survivor? And it's like, yeah. And I'm like, wait, have you heard of Rutgers Survivor? And he's like, yeah, I signed up. And I'm like, dude, I'm the one who's running that.
That's awesome.
So that was just great.
I distinctly remember, being at that involvement fair and talking to that mutual friend of ours as part of Actuarial Club, talking about Survivor. And he was saying, yeah, there's a booth over there. I'm like, really? Like, this is something if I found out about this freshman year, I was so interested. I was so surprised that Rutgers Survivor wasn't a thing yet. And I remember a Reddit post on the Rutgers on the Rutgers Reddit, and I think that was you guys that turned out to be.
Yeah.
I responded to that way back when, like over a year ago, being like, yeah, I would do it.
Yeah,
so
and that's why
really
we did
all
it.
together.
That's what we did for people like you, and honestly, me, Adam, and Max, because we all wanted to play, but we were shocked that there wasn't a club already. So if if there isn't something to do, just make it, I guess. So yeah,
Put your mind to it. We did. I mean, but for a school as big as Rutgers, you're absolutely right, Peter. I mean, other schools, and we've said before, Maryland, Michigan, there are some big established universities that have clubs very similar to this. Like this, what we did is not entirely foreign concept in the college landscape, but for us to be the ones to do it at Rutgers is just something I'm incredibly proud of. And Joe, I would hope that you would be incredibly proud to be a part of it and play.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I feel like I really got like even though I went out, merge boot, I feel like I got so much, getting to be a part of that, two initial alliances at the very start, kind of like running that first vote, getting to win that challenge, have that moment with jumping into Jack's arms, second challenge, and then third vote, getting to like strategically run around, get the whole scramble, getting into a 4-4 tie. Like if I'm gonna go out, I went out in probably one of the most dramatic ways possible. So even if I didn't make a deep run, I feel like I really checked so many boxes for what I want out of the experience. So
and you share what me and Adam shared, which was this was the tail end of our college careers. This was it. We made it count. We made Rutgers Survivor. And with that, with the little time we have left, is there any final thoughts? I think we should give this to Joe because he is a special guest. So Joe, do you have any quick final thoughts that you'd like to share? Maybe about the season, what you wanted, anything else, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'm just so grateful it happened while I was still at the school. The fact that I got chosen, the fact that I've been featured so much so far, I'm so grateful for that. I just want to say, like, to everyone, if you're thinking about doing this, if you're still watching this, but like, it's just a fun experience. We get to try this out. The fact that it's we've gotten such great edited product so far. A lot of that comes down to Max. It feels so professional. It feels so real. That I like to be part of something so real. Like I really hope to go on the real show one day. Even if I don't, the fact that I got to be part of this, it's amazing. So I'm so grateful to each and every one of you in that way, and I hope people keep watching, keep enjoying the show, because I think there's a lot of great season left to go.
Definitely, Max and Adam, you got anything left?
Yeah, the one other question I would ask is watching it back. Is there anything that surprised you about either what other people said in their confessionals or about what was going on in Werblin, stuff that you didn't get to see firsthand when you were playing the show?
Yeah, definitely the alliance structure. That the fact that they had 2 trios on their tribe, and it was actually Logan and John that were kind of the least connected. They came off the most social. They also had like the unique hairstyles, the long hair, the mullet. That they just stuck out more. So I expected them to be more in the mix there. Otherwise, like John calling out the fact that I wanted an Exile alliance, people were threatened by that. That was a surprise, but made sense. Like I understand where it comes from.
Because for you, that was a justification. Like you thought that you just needed to say it, but to them, that was like, why would you be name dropping alliances unless you're a super fan? And that could have been a part of it.
I mean, we see spoiler alert for Survivor 46, just putting it out there. It seems like people are really threatened by other people either feeling connected to random Survivor contestants or referencing Survivor things. Like if you guys saw Survivor 46, you know that Q wanted Mariah out as soon as she said that her favorite player was Aubrey. So
yeah,
you never know what people are going to feel threatened by.
You got to be very careful. You got to be very careful what you're saying. Yeah. And then Adam, with the little time ago, anything else quickly?
Yeah, really just for all the viewers going ahead, Joe, like you weren't there for the majority of trial councils after. I mean, without spoilers or even without knowing yourself, just what can you say, like in terms of how you went out and the dynamics that you felt at the time? Where do you think people go from there, the remaining 7?
Yeah, I think my impression was I just really hope my Voorhees people, get some sort of lick in there. The other 4 just seem so much tighter, especially with the rock draw. So I was thinking, they got to break at some point. They have these more public big threats and people like Logan and John. That was at least the impression. And so I was thinking, hopefully maybe the sister can flip over, Ashi can flip over with Gia. Maybe we can make something happen, even if I'm not there. I was just hoping for some sort of success for my tribe. Tribal lines are a real thing. Like you experience it way more when you bond with these people. So we were underdogs at that point once I left, so I was hoping they could get some in. So we'll see how that goes and if it happens.
That's all the time we have for today, unfortunately. Thank you very much, Joe, for joining us. And I think you summed it up perfectly. This game is just so much fun. And I don't think we formally announced this yet, but there is going to be a season 2. We have the e-board already elected for next year. They're planning, they're getting ready. They're getting ready for all these auditions. So please just audition. As Joe can attest, it is just so much fun. So once again, I am Peter Slattery. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Max. Thank you, Joe. This was On the Raritan. I hope you guys have a good one.